Hello and welcome to another edition of the Ron Blank & Associates Manufacturer Webinar Series, a monthly broadcast series focused on the expansion of knowledge for the building product manufacturing industry. I'm your moderator today, Breanne Dillard. And today's webinar is titled Influencing Specifications, What Design Professionals Need from Building Product Manufacturers, the International Edition, and it's hosted and facilitated by Ron Blank & Associates. Our presenter today is Craig Haney of CSI with Interspec LLC. Thank you so much for joining us today, Craig. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, so I need to show my screen and I'll start my presentation. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. What we're going to try to do is to give you some information on how design professionals function in North America. The US and Canada are pretty much the same when it comes to design professionals and how they work. So we're going to try and help you understand those individuals and how to work with them. Let's look at it first from the design professional's viewpoint. Fees are shrinking. Owners are finding themselves more and more squeezed to make money on a retail center or to build a structure for less. And so they are cutting back on everything. And the architects and interior designers are not immune to that. They're often getting their fees cut, not necessarily with a proportionate cut in their services. Deadlines are shorter. It's not unusual for projects to come and go out of a design professional's office in a matter of months. It used to take maybe 6 or 8 months to do a small office building. I've seen those come and go now within probably less than a 3-month period, probably getting closer to 2 months. Lawsuits are rampant. The US in particular is very susceptible to lawsuits. It's one of the issues we face in this country as a design professional. If you're a design professional and you haven't been sued, you're very lucky. And it's usually for something that's completely out of the architect's or interior designer's hands. Somebody walks through the door of an office building and spills a Coke, and the next person walks through and slips in it, falls. It must be the architect's fault. It's kind of how the way it works. And in addition to that, technology is exploding. There's just a huge number of products that we're hit with all the time now. Just the number of, for example, single-ply roofing systems that have come out in the last 20 years is just astonishing to me. So design professionals are constantly being barraged with new offerings, new products, and you have to try and set yourself apart from that. A huge number of product decisions are required on any project. It's been said that the typical architectural project requires 3,000 product decisions. Some of those are pretty easy. The Portland cement in the concrete has to meet an industry standard. You want type 1 or type 2. Some of them are harder when you get into making decisions on the building exterior, the color of the brick or the precast concrete and the glass and metal panels and everything gets very complicated. And sometimes the product decision process is not always what it might seem. You would think that as design professionals, we would do due diligence on every product that we research, and we try to do that, but sometimes it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm trying to get finished with a project and go home. I go to a manufacturer's website and I can't find the technical information I need. I just go to the next manufacturer's website. And owners are exerting more influence over product decisions, not so much the building owner who's going to build a little dental clinic once in their career. I'm talking about the big mall developers, the hotel developers and owners and operators. They have definite opinions on what they want in their project. And then there's this best product versus the best product for the project. You may have the best product out there in your product category, but sometimes I just don't need that. Sometimes I just need the best product for my project, and I'm trying to keep the cost down. How do you get a specification? Specification to us is the written end of the architectural project that's going to define what the products that are going to be used on the project are. So how do you get into our specifications? Well, first you have to decide what your goal is. And your goal is your product listed in a project specification. I hope everyone agrees with that, but I will tell you right up front, there's a better option. And that is your product listed in the design professional's office master specification. Design professionals in this country do not write specifications for projects from scratch. They use a series of templates similar to what an attorney might do for a will. You have a standard will form, fill in the name of the parties. If you have kids, put the kids paragraph in. If you don't, take the kids paragraph out. We do the same thing with our specifications. We call them master specifications. So if you can get listed in the design professional's office master, then you're in every project that goes out the door. How do you achieve that? Well, you get the right product information in the right format to the right person at the right time. Seems pretty simple, right? Yeah, well, not quite that simple. I'm going to mention a couple of things right up front, and we're going to go into more detail. First, make yourself the expert in your field, the design professional's go-to person. Design professionals can't know everything about 3,000 different product categories, so they're looking for people to help them. They're looking for product representatives who know glass, for example, if they're looking at a glass product. They want to be able to contact someone who can help them make that decision on the glass, on their project. So you want to be the person that the design professional thinks of first. Second, avoid reactionary selling. Reactionary selling is, I write a specification, issue the project for bids, and the next thing I know, I've got 6 people calling me saying, me too, I want to bid it, I've got one of those products. That's not a good option. You want to get involved early in the process. You want to be in the specification when it goes out the door of the design professional's office. You don't want to be trying to come in after the fact and get listed. I can't emphasize enough the importance of follow-up. After a project's issued for bids or for negotiation, the design professional really has limited input on which products are actually used. It's often taken completely out of their hands by the contractor or the construction manager. So even if you do get listed in the specification, you must follow up with bidders, subcontractors, and suppliers to make sure that your product is used. I will caution you that design professionals in this country can't write a check or a purchase order for your product. We've seen so many international manufacturers come to the U.S., bring in a sales team, start sending them out to design professionals, calling on them, and then fire all of them because they're not coming out of the design professional's office with a check. Well, design professionals don't write checks. They write specifications. It's all they can do for you. So they can make sure that you are in the specifications when it's issued, but they can't purchase your product. I will caution you to stop trying to sell. Design professionals can't buy products. Don't sell to them. Working with design professionals is all about building relationships, not about selling. Again, you need to be the design professional's go-to person. Focus on servicing the design professionals, and sales are going to come naturally. When a building product manufacturer asks me how much a given effort, a marketing effort, advertising, whatever, is going to increase their bottom line, I really don't want to work with that company anymore because I'm not interested in that their bottom line is. I'm interested in building a relationship so that I can do a good project for my owner, have it completed successfully. Let's look at design and construction participants. First, the owner. The project owner can be an individual, firm, or governmental agency. The owner has a need for a construction project and provides the project funding. The owner is also a signatory party to the construction contract. there's a difference between building owner and project owner. They might be two different entities. Example is the interior finish out of a lease space where the tenant arranges for the interior construction rather than the building owner. But when we talk about owner, when it comes to construction contracts and specifications, we are typically talking about the owner of the construction contract. The design professional can be an architect, interior engineer, interior designer, landscape architect, and others. I've seen as many as 24 design professionals on a hotel project. There can be a lot of people involved. The design professional provides professional design services and prepares the bidding documents for the project. The design professional has a contract with the owner, but does not sign the construction contract. They have implied obligations under the construction contract, but they do not sign it. Contractor or construction manager. Contractor constructs the project with assistance from subcontractors and suppliers. Might have their own forces do some of the work. They do sign the construction contract. And they can be paid either by a lump sum payment or the cost of the work plus a fee, which is negotiated up front. Construction manager, similarly, constructs the project with assistance from subcontractors and suppliers. Construction managers, as a general rule, don't have their own forces to do the work. They do sign the construction contract. Most of the time, construction managers working on a cost of the work plus a fee basis. Project delivery methods in North America. First one is design, bid, build. This is used almost exclusively on publicly funded projects where the project has to conform to open and competitive bidding laws. So this is the traditional approach. The project's designed and bidding documents are developed. The project is then issued for open and competitive bidding. And if the low bid is within funding limits, a contract is awarded. If it's not within the limits, all bids are canceled and the process starts over. So the design professional then has to redesign the project, try and get it in the budget by reducing size, cost of materials, etc. This is the most lengthy process. Newer process is the design build. It can be used on public or privately funded projects. There are some stipulations as to how it's done on a privately funded project. Projects designed and priced throughout the design process. So the design professional is preparing documents, giving them to the contractor as progress sets, and getting preliminary pricing to make sure that they're staying within the budget. And at the end, if the price is within the owner's budget, contract's awarded. Adjustments to the project design can be made throughout the pricing process, and that ensures that the project meets the owner's budget. It's also a much shorter process because you're pricing it as the architect, interior designer still working on the project. Can be used on publicly funded projects as long as competitive sub-bids are received. Oftentimes what happens is you will see a design bid, contractor selected by their qualifications, sign a contract with the owner, and then they will bid the project out to subcontractors. There's also a process called owner builder. It's used almost exclusively on privately funded projects. The owner and the builder are one and the same. Again, not seen on publicly funded projects very often because those have to be open and competitively bid. What are the factors that affect product decisions by the design professional? First, we've got to look at the design professional's office. First, we'll look at small offices. This is typically about 10 or less employees, usually one or two partners, some CAD or BIM operators, and support staff. Design and technical decisions are typically made by the same person. I say that because you need to decide how your product fits into these categories. A design type product would be something like brick or glass for the exterior of a building. Technical decision would be a clear floor sealer for concrete floors or joint sealers. Design and technical decisions in a small office, there's only one person qualified to make those decisions, and that's a partner. But this is about 80% of the design firms out there. Many of these, quite honestly, will be someone working out of their spare bedroom. They don't even have an office. So these are difficult firms to find. And a lot of times they're doing smaller projects. They may be doing residential, maybe interior finish out of some lease spaces, but they're not doing major projects. Medium-sized office, now you're up to about 50 employees. You got multiple partners, a new person in here called a project manager. This is the person who takes the project when it comes into the office and sees it through the design process, in the construction documents, and out the door for construction. You may also have project designers, project architects, or engineers. You'll have CAD or BIM operators, and possibly a spec writer. Usually it takes more than 50 people for a firm to be able to afford a full-time spec writer. Because of the structure, the projects often pass between people as they progress through the various phases. So for that reason, design and technical decisions are often made by different people. It's about 18% of the firms out there. Large offices, 50 or more employees. Now you've got multiple partners, multiple project managers, project designers, project architects, etc. And almost always a spec writer on staff in a large office. The projects typically pass between people as they pass through the various phases. So the design and technical decisions are usually made by different people. If you have an office, a large office in your territory that has multiple locations, you're going to have to make multiple calls on them. Don't assume that just because they have the same name on the door that those offices have anything to do with each other. It's often very rare that there's any conversation beyond the partner level in these multi-location firms. These might work on a studio concept. So they may have a studio that does educational projects, and another studio that does retail, and another studio that does sports facilities. So if you don't do sports facilities, your products don't lend themselves to sports facilities, skip that studio. This is a small number, about 2% of all the firms out there. Then we have this kind of oddball group called specification consultants. This is where I fall into the scenario. Small firms, usually less than 4 employees. Most of them are 1 or 2, but responsible for a large volume of work relative to their size. They provide technical assistance and make product decisions for numerous design offices. So these can be your gateway to some nice projects and can open doors for you that you can't necessarily open on your own. So this is a group of people that you need to find and be in contact with. About 120 firms nationwide, and you think, boy, how am I going to find those? That's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Well, most of us are members of Specification Consultants and Independent Practice group called SCIP. Just people like myself who do specification consulting for a living. So you can go on skip.com and there's a listing of all the spec consultants who are members. Next, we need to look at project phases. First is the schematic design phase, early conceptual design stage. We focus on things like space relationships, site layout, basic building materials. We're not going to decide whose brick we're using at this point. We might decide it's going to be brick rather than precast concrete, but we'll decide what brick. Documents developed this phase: site plan, floor plans, elevations, schematic building sections, maybe a preliminary project description, which is kind of an outline specification. No detail at this point. Typical product decision: the exterior walls might be brick, exterior insulation and finish system, or precast concrete. It's about 15% of the fee, so it's not a very large part of the fee. Next is the design development phase. Takes the schematic design, we refine it, start adding detail to it. Documents we develop are basically the same as for schematic design, but we'll start adding wall sections and limited details and maybe an outline specification. Typical product decision, the exterior walls are going to be brick veneer, possibly red, probably king size. Whose brick? We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. About 20% of the fee for design professionals, so a little bit more than the SD phase. Contract documents, what we call CDs. Take design development, expand it into documents suitable for bidding and construction. We develop a complete set of drawings with full details and schedules, and a complete project manual, which is what we call the specifications for the project. Typical product decision, exterior walls are now AAA ruby red blend modular with white mortar, galvanized steel, flexible anchors. In other words, every decision should be made by the end of the contract documents phase. So if you're coming into an architect's office to call on them to use precast concrete on their project, you're too late. The decision's already been made to use brick. You have to get in earlier. It's about 40% of the fees, so it's our largest phase. Bidding or negotiation phase. The contract documents are issued for bidding, either open or closed, or for negotiation. Typically, bidding is used on publicly funded projects. Negotiation more for privately funded projects. Documents we develop. The only thing that we do during this phase is addenda that we might need to clarify and supplement the contract documents. We may have left something out, may have made a decision that the brick we chose was not available, or for some other reason we need to make a modification. Product decisions, the possible approval of substitute materials. Some design professionals do not look at substitutions for building products during this phase. They want to wait until the next phase. It's only about 5% of the fee, and it's a very short process. Even on a big project, the bidding can be maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Contract administration phase. The low bidder or the selected contractors will each perform the work. Documents develop contract modifications that we use to clarify and supplement the contract documents or to modify the initial design. So your typical product decision is the possible selection of additional products due to changes and the approval of substitute materials, and it is 20% of the fee. Why are products selected? Well, in general, we look at this. Is this a newer time-proven product? Every architect, every owner would love to have a time-proven product. Every designer wants to have the newest product that's out there so they can be different than all the other designers. Is it suitable for its intended use? We get a lot of architects, unfortunately, who try to push the envelope, become the latest, greatest designer by using products in situations where they should not be used. Used in traditional ways, or it's a unique installation. Is it available where I need it at the required time? It's easy to select and specify a product, but if you can't get it when you need it, that doesn't help the owner any. Who distributes, installs, and maintains it? We love for that to be the same entity. Doesn't happen very often, but that would be nice. And are there equivalent products? This comes down to the substitutions process. In general, in North America, publicly funded projects cannot be closed to a single product. If you've got a brick building, you're going to have to list multiple manufacturers who are acceptable or allow for substitutions to come in during the bidding process. Rare that you can close a specification to a single product. Compatibility with other products, obviously that's an issue. And is this a sustainable product? May have heard about the efforts in the US, including the LEED process we'll talk about shortly. Big push to make everything sustainable at this point. Aesthetic issues, color, texture, but in particular coordination with other products. If I pick a brick, as in this photo, that is blue, and you come in with a light blue or a dark blue brick. And I've picked all my glass and mullions and metal panels and everything else based on my blue selection. And I choose one of your bricks, I may have to completely redesign the whole exterior. Performance characteristics. What's the basic function? We get a lot of instances where someone may try to take a glazed aluminum curtain wall that's meant to be vertical and they turn it 45 degrees, becomes a roof, and then they wonder why it leaks. I've seen that happen more than once. What are the required attributes for this product? Smooth, hard, green, shiny, whatever those might be. Conditions unique to this project. If you're dealing in parts of the world where you have weather extremes, for example, that can dictate the products that you need for the project. And what's the performance history? It goes back to, is this a new or time-proven product? Installation, how easy is it to install? And are there time and weather limitations? Everything you mix up, mix two components together or open a can or a tube, it's going to start to change into something else as soon as you open it. And you may have to think seriously about what those time and weather limitations are. What are the project conditions? And are there special training or tools required? And if so, can I get people with the required training and the required tools to my project site when I need them? Safety, I'm not talking about job site safety. In North America, design professionals are pretty much let off the hook for any job site safety unless they observe something and fail to mention it to the contractor. But this is the contractor's, it's under their umbrella to deal with job site safety. So what we're talking about is fire safety, and life safety, how to get people out of a building in the event of a fire or a shooting or anything else that may happen in it. Physical safety, things like slip resistance and the use of plastic glazing or tempered glass in hazardous locations, for example. Accessibility, we have to deal here in the US with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which has now been incorporated into most state building codes as well. And that is to allow people who are physically handicapped to be able to get into a structure. So it deals with things like ramps and handrail heights and opening force on doors, a lot of those things. Durability is a big issue for us. Wear resistance, if I put a residential grade ceramic tile inside the entrance to a major office building, it isn't going to last very long. Strength, which can have a lot of different aspects. Adhesive strength, flexural strength, compressive strength, all those may come into play. Weather resistance is a big one. And here in North America, we do get temperature extremes. Not unusual to see ambient temperature swing between winter and summer of, well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But surface temperature, dark surface on a south exposure in the southern part of the US can have a surface temperature swing of 180 or 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have to pick products that allow for that. Cost, two different things we consider. Initial cost, how much is it cost for this product installed in the building? So that would include the product and its installation. And then there's life cycle cost. What does it cost to maintain this product and replace it or repair it if we have to? Who's the manufacturer? What's their reputation? I caution you that this is something that you should be concerned with to a great extent. I've seen manufacturers really make a mess of it by not watching out for their reputation. And once you lose your reputation with a design professional, it's very, very difficult to get back in their door. What's the history of the manufacturer? How long have they been around? Do they have a good history without any failures? What's the warranty? Warranty has several considerations: the length of the warranty, the strength of the warranty. The strength of the warranty is purely up to what the strength of the manufacturer is. And then exclusions, and we all get those. And I'll say that this is probably the one thing that really concerns a lot of design professionals the most. I saw a roofing warranty for a major roofing manufacturer that said that to keep the warranty in effect, the owner had to get somebody on the roof at least once a year, do an inspection, make any minor repairs. That's great. I love that. But it also stated that the roof warranty was void if there was roof traffic. So I'm not sure how we were supposed to get on the roof. Applicable codes and standards we have to consider, and they are two different things. Building codes define the minimum standards for construction. We don't have an option on this. We cannot do less than what the building code says. We can go over and above the building code, but we can't do less. And this is the legal requirement in many, I'll say most locations, unless you're really out in a very remote area. Every city, every town has got a building code that we have to comply with. Reference standard is it's a consensus standard that's produced by groups like trade associations or government agencies or others. And they're incorporated into the contract documents by reference. The example I'll use is Portland cement. I can either write in my specification how to manufacture Portland cement. That's probably 4,000 or 5,000 pages, or I can simply refer to American Society of Testing Materials Standard C150 and say I want ASTM C150 Portland cement. Makes my life a lot easier. Then all I have to do is make sure that the cement has that certification on it. Sustainable products, I mentioned earlier, here in the U.S., we have a process called the LEED certification process. It's issued by a group called the U.S. Green Building Council. And it's a process by which a building project achieves certification to one of 4 levels based on the number of points obtained. And USGBC does not have an exclusive on sustainable rating systems. There are others. There's one called Living Building Challenge, and there are often rating systems that are developed by major cities to make sure that the projects in their jurisdiction are going the route of sustainable construction. LEED has 2 different types of points: design-related points that might relate to products, but only in how and where they're used, not in product attributes. For example, I can get points for getting natural daylight to all of the occupants in a structure. Doesn't matter whose window I use, I just have to use a window. They have little or no impact on product specifications. Some examples: green vehicle, reduce pollution by promoting alternatives. In other words, you put charging stations, so forth, on your in your parking areas. Reduce parking footprint. Bicycle facilities, I can get a point for my building if I put in a changing room and bicycle walking facilities. Then there are product related points. These have a direct relationship to products used. Examples: building product disclosure and optimization. We may ask a manufacturer for EPD, environmental product declarations, describes how your product is sustainable. Check into the sourcing of raw materials, look at material ingredients. Indoor environmental quality is things like the use of low emitting materials and the types of interior lighting that are used that improve the indoor environment. Specific requirements vary between various versions of LEED and will probably change in the future. So for that reason, I recommend that manufacturers don't list specific credit numbers in product literature or guide specifications. Instead, use terminology that relates to the specific LEED point designations. such as recycled content, low emitting materials. Let's talk about how you work with design professionals. And the first thing I want to look at is your product information. First, hard copy or electronic. I get asked this every webinar and every seminar, it seems like, that I do. Hard copy, it's being replaced by electronic. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. The things like guide specification and test data and that sort of thing are easily distributed by electronic means. The things that you can't really do electronically are things like samples for color selection. Sometimes the senior office staff prefer hard copy while younger staff prefer electronic. So I think we're in a transition period still. Hard copies out of date quickly, and space limitations in design offices might preclude keeping hard copy. Electronic allows for dynamic updating, and you can deliver it in multiple methods, either through emails or on your website or other means. Types of product information that you're going to have. Your product introduction, what I like to call the pretty pictures. These are absolutely essential for initial product consideration. Always remember, architects are visual people, so say it with images when you can. I suggest these be professionally prepared. I've seen them done by the owners of manufacturers of construction product firms, and I find that they are severely lacking most of the time. Get someone to help you with this, and don't hire an advertising agency that does really good at selling dishwashing detergent, because selling to design professionals is totally different. Even when all other product information goes electronic, I think there's always going to be a need for effective hard copy brochure, for example. If you walk into a meeting, you hand out a brochure on your subject, the architects are going to look at it, see what you're offering. Next would be your technical data. This is used to present your product attributes, when to use it and when not to use it. Please tell me when not to use it. We'll need your tests and certifications. If we ask for a minimum compressive strength, you'll have to document that you meet that. How to install it, how to maintain it. Where is it available? Is it only available in the southwest part of the US? It's only available in Canada. I need to know that so I don't specify it in the wrong location. And you need to talk about the sustainability of your products. It's obviously a big issue. BIM objects. What is BIM? It's the use of 3D virtual models of buildings, as well as a process for managing and collecting building data. The process of designing a building collaboratively using one coherent system of computer models rather than as separate sets of drawings. The BIM's not just a design tool, and it's not just a type of software, nor is it just a collection of building data. But more than anything, BIM is not a silver bullet for product manufacturers, as has been represented many, many times in our profession. If you have BIM objects, that's all you need. That seems to be a prevailing theme of some BIM software manufacturers. It's just not the case. Guide specifications. These are your master specifications for your product that contain editing notes to assist in product selection and specifying. They're prepared according to some principles. We have two organizations in North America. CSI is the Construction Specifications Institute. CSC is Construction Specifications Canada. And both of those organizations have manuals of practice, if you will, that help specifiers to correctly specify products for building projects. Division 1 is called General Requirements in the CSI format. And your guide spec need to be coordinated with that, not repeat it. Guide specs need to be based on your product without attempting to close the specification. There's two ways to close the specification. I can say widgets, Acme widgets, no substitutions allowed. Or I can say Acme widgets, 3100 PSI compressive strength. Everybody else makes 2800. You're the only one that makes 3100. That's a closed spec. Needs to be free from promotional language. By the time an architect or an interior designer or an engineer download your guide specifications, you can stop selling. They're going to specify your product. So get the pretty language about how wonderful your product is out of there. I strongly suggest you get this professionally prepared. Many of us do these who are specification consultants. Product binder. Office libraries are being phased out, but are still viable in some firms. Office binder puts all your product literature in one location. Put it in 3-ring format, 3-ring binder, so it's easy to update. I've had many international manufacturers send me hardbound copies of their literature, and you can't update it. Put the CSI, CSE division number on the spine. For example, Division 3 is concrete, Division 4 is masonry. That's how we file them. Make sure you put a business card inside and either a sticker or a page inside with space to note updates. If you can fit samples in, do it. Things like, like coatings and so forth. If you want to show the texture on, it's easy to put a sample in. Samples, I will tell you, show and tell works. Our design professionals are very visual people. So if you can show it with samples, I strongly suggest you do that. But a caution, don't overwhelm the design professional because space is limited. And I would always ask the design professional if they want samples now when you call on them, or allow them to call you when they need samples. That way they don't just end up throwing these things in the trash because they don't have room, and you can make sure they've got the latest colors. How do you reach us? Delivery methods, seminars, I think, are wonderful opportunities. Lunch and learns, we call them here in the US, are very popular. Design professionals in this country and in Canada as well have to have credits to maintain for continuing education, to maintain their licensing or their certification. So they're looking for these, very popular. It's a good way to get in front of design professionals. And you can do these at trade shows as well. If you happen to be going to the American Institute of Architects National Convention, for example, they may still be allowing you to put on short seminars. You get 4 of them, you get 1 hour's credit. Webinars, same thing, very successful. And also then exhibiting at product shows. These have fallen much out of favor, I'll admit, due to the pandemic, but they're still popular and they seem to be coming back. So they're national, regional shows, even state and local shows. Periodicals, design professionals do read a lot of periodicals, but I don't think this is a really effective way to advertise. They're expensive. I just don't see the return on your investment here, quite honestly. Mail, I wouldn't bother. Going to end up in the recycle bin. Email can be effective if you don't overdo it. And I don't want to. I've got one group right now that is sending me an email every day. Guess who I've blocked as of this morning? I just don't need that. Okay. So you need to be careful with that, and also make sure you don't get on the spammers list and get blocked by the whole country. Internet is a great way. Most people are doing product research on the internet now. Internet, there's a couple of ways to approach that. Construction product directories, here's 3 examples: ARCAT, 4 specs, and suites. I can go on these sites as a design professional and research construction products. So these are certainly something to look at. Manufacturer websites on the internet, I think this is something you really have to focus on. You need to make sure that you've got it right. In the last few years, improved search engines are making these very good searches. It's easy to locate information. Oftentimes now, my first approach when I'm looking for a product is just to go to one of the search engines. I don't go to Swedes or Arcan or any of those. I will caution you to not assume that the design professional knows which product is needed before they get to your website. I see this so much. There was a manufacturer several years ago of weather stripping and thresholds that when I went to their website, I was presented with a list of product numbers. Do you want a number 100, a number 101, a number 102? There's no pictures, no description. And they expect me to open every one of these and see what it is and see if that's what I want. And they made over 200 products. Next manufacturer, please. Next, don't make design professionals register as a prerequisite for website access. I know why you're doing it. You're trying to find projects that you can follow up on, but design professionals hate this. It's no different than you being tracked by any of the search engines now on the online, and then offered one of the products you were searching for in something like Amazon or one of the other websites. If you do ask for design professionals to register, offer an opt-out button. Sometimes late at night, I'm not going to tell you my firstborn's name. I'm sorry, I'm going to move on. I can tell every time a manufacturer did their website by themselves without getting someone who knows what they're doing, get help, get professionally prepared. And if you sell to design professionals, contractors, and homeowners, you need 3 different areas on your website. The example I'll use is paints. So design professional, I don't care about brushes and drop cloths, but I do care about safety data sheets on the products. Contractors are different. Homeowners, yeah, they're interested in the paint, but they need to know what paintbrush to use. How do you get the information to us? Again, the internet, I think, is a great resource for cloud-based collaboration websites. These allow design professionals to create, edit, and collaborate on project specifications from anywhere using a browser. So I can write specifications, I can post them on these websites, and then invite my owner and all of my consultants to go online to look at these specifications and drawings. You can do drawings as well, and to comment on them or to update them if needed. You can make the choice of whether or not they can update them. You have to be careful because some of these things track product use by mining the cloud-based data. So that can get annoying to design professionals. At some point, these websites are going to integrate product data and BIM objects in the coming years. Hard copy, again, out of date quickly after it's printed. Space limitations make the design professionals not want to keep it. CDs, I don't see them much anymore. If you use them, use it as an introduction. It's an electronic copy of your pretty pictures. They'll put a link on there to your website if they want more information. Problem is you can't update them. They are cheap and recyclable, so there's some use there. Flash drives, they're inexpensive and reusable, but viruses can be a problem, so people are getting away from using these to a great extent. How do you find project leads? I think the best option is personal relationships with design professionals. Build a good relationship, gain their trust, and then ask them what projects they're working on. You can use document services, things like Dodge reports and so forth, but I caution you that this can result in reactionary selling. Sometimes projects don't show up on these until they're already out for bids. Then you're out there trying to get your product approved while the specification has already been written. There are limitations in tracking projects due to the reporting methods. Again, sometimes projects are not reported until late in the process. Office visits, there's 3 types. The introductory, spend 5 minutes. Use it as an information gathering call. Determine the design professional's needs and problems. Briefly review one product per visit. Don't try and, if you make wood, metal, and vinyl windows, don't try and introduce all those in one trip. Introduce your catalogs and update your product literature. A product specific call, you're going to spend 30 minutes. You have to spend 60 minutes if you're doing an AI accredited lunch and learn that you get credit for. Make an appointment. Don't expect to walk into an architect's office and then give you 30 minutes. It's a direct presentation to a specific individual. And again, you're going to present one product line, but you'll go in more depth this time. Bring your literature, guide specs, and samples. And if you do a box lunch seminar, it covers all the office personnel with one office call. Then there's a specification visit. This is a presentation to decision makers with specific products for a specific project at the proper time. This is usually in response to a design professional's request to come in and help them on a project. You're going to spend adequate time to satisfy their needs. Don't schedule 2 of these back to back, because the first one might run over. Be the expert. Here's your opportunity to show the design professional that you know your product, your industry, and code requirements. Be the expert. Okay, will you live or die? 10 rules of effective product representation. First, establish an objective for the presentation. Why are you here? You're introducing yourself. Are you meeting on a project? What is the objective? Make the presentation clear and understandable. A lot of manufacturers reps have the bad habit of talking in jargon from their industry, and the design professional may not know what that jargon is. Make the presentation personal and flexible. I've seen manufacturers reps come into offices, get going on their presentation. Someone interrupts them and says, hey, I used that on a project when I had a problem. And they sit there going, yeah, and then go right back to their agenda without satisfying the person who asks the question wants to hear an answer that's acceptable to them. Make sure they get that. Make the presentation participatory. Nobody wants to be lectured to, so make sure that they have the opportunity to say, hey, I got a question for you. Let the design professional steer the agenda. You may never get back to your agenda. That's okay. The design professional's got questions, go with it. More than anything, use product representation as gathering time. You're gathering information about not only the project, but the design professional. You may not get something on this project, but if you know that they do a lot of schools because you've investigated them, that's good information. Avoid negative selling. I've had manufacturers come into my office and say, what do you use for widgets? And I say, we use Acme widgets a lot of times. I actually had somebody say, you're still using that junk? Yes, and you'll never get back in my office. Thank you very much. How do you know if the Acme widgets isn't owned by my brother? Dress appropriately. It used to be, you had to, put a coat and tie on if you were a guy going into an office. Nowadays, it's a little more relaxed. But some offices don't really allow their employees to wear jeans, blue jeans, so you shouldn't either. Be respectful of time. If you say you're going to take 30 minutes, take 30 minutes. You can always say, well, I've used up my time. Do you want me to keep going? Or I'll reschedule, come back. Close with questions. And I ask, when I do these live, I ask my audience to give me what they think is the best question to ask a design professional before they walk out the door. I will tell you it's this. Can I be in your office master specification? Remember, we started off at the top of the hour saying you want to be in the architect's master specification so that you are in every project that goes out the door. And if you ask them if you can be in there, usually they'll say, sure. 10 mistakes made, no presentation objectives, mediocre first impression. Yeah, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression, right? lack of preparation, you didn't bring the test data with you or whatever. Poor visual aids happens so often. I had a manufacturer come into my office. He sold door lock sets. He set a little sample door down on my desk with a lock set on it, and the lever handle fell off. Yeah, maybe you want to take a screwdriver along and tighten that thing up once in a while. Lack of enthusiasm. If you're not excited about your product, then why should I get excited about it? Weak eye contact. If you're making a presentation, as in a lunch and learn in a conference room or something, make sure everybody in the room knows that you've acknowledged them. No audience involvement. Don't stand up there and just lecture. Lack of facial expressions kind of goes along with weak eye contact. Sticky floor syndrome. When I'm doing a presentation in an architect's office, I'll get up and walk around. For one thing, it keeps people from getting on their phones while I'm making a presentation, but it also just keeps them interested. And an ineffective closing. Closing is, can I be in your office, master specification? So, what do you have to do? Have all necessary product information on hand. Be thoroughly familiar with your product. Be ready to compare your product to your competition openly and honestly. Sometimes your product isn't the best solution. Your competitor's product is. Meet your product's limitations. I've had manufacturers reps tell me they could use products outside when I know they're not meant for outside. Recognize many specifications can't be close to your product. Recognize the results are often not immediate. Respond promptly to the design professional's request for additional information. All right, Ron Blank and Associates, bridging the gap between design professionals and product manufacturers. RBA does continuing education for design professionals. Have a program called CE Academy where they go into a city and invite the local design professionals in and have up to 8 product manufacturers come in and give their 1-hour presentation. The architects get 8 credits. Architects and Specifications program, they have people who call on design professionals across the country to introduce the products and do a lot of seminars and webinars just like this one. I'm a specification consultant. I do specification for construction product manufacturers. That includes guide specifications, seminars and webinars, and the preparation of product data. There's my phone number, and you can get me at Craig-Colorado@Outlook. So with that, I will sign off and say thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. And I'd be more than happy to pursue anything we talked about further with you.
Great, Craig. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
All right, sir. You have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.